on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
The conversations you have with other people who encourage you, who swap ideas with you, who are doing the same sort of thing as you at the same stage, or they've been there and they've done it, and all those bits and pieces. I mean, that is, for me, the gold dust of why you attend a live event. And I hope that's what people got out of it on Monday.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers. No more barriers. No one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson.
And that's the first time we've said that since we said it on stage live.
We did. That's right. Yes, so we're recording this on the Friday of the week of the first live show on the Monday. How are you feeling, James?
I'm actually feeling elated by it all. I felt the next day a bit like the day after my wedding, in that I was knackered, supremely knackered, but felt that something good had happened the day before. And honestly, we recorded the podcast, I think, on the Thursday before the Monday, and neither of us could say with our hand on our hearts that we were going to be standing there on Monday. And there were a lot of signs that we would end up cancelling. And goodness knows, had it been a week later, I just don't think there's any chance we could have held it. I mean, everything's been cancelled.
Yeah, I think at the moment, if it was this Monday coming, we probably could do, but you never know. I mean, all the football's cancelled. Everything is as you say is under threat now. So yeah, harder to say.
So in this episode, we're going to, well, first of all, we're going to put together a little highlights package of what happened, so that you can hear, and if you're watching, you can see some of it. We should say that the sessions are coming in now, the professionally recorded video sessions. They look terrific. You can have access to everything that happened at the conference, even if you weren't there. And for a small fee, just to cover the costs of our video production team, our very professional team. So if you go to selfpublishingformula.com/digital, you can see the details there. Yeah, I'm excited about putting that out, and we have got a highlights package coming up in a few minutes for you to have a look at. But I think what we're going to do, Mark, what are we going to do in this session? We're going to go back over the conference, what we learnt, what the purpose of it was, where, what benefits it gave to people who came, and we'll talk a bit wider about conferences, I think.
Yeah, maybe even what we're going to do next year, if we can think about, that far ahead. We are already starting to think about it, aren't we?
We are. We've had conversations with the venue. But before we get going on that discussion, let me welcome our new Patreon supporters. We have a little crop of them today. So I'd like to say a very warm welcome to Valerie Zeismer Mullet, maybe, from New Hampshire in the United States. Carl Serapian from QC in Canada. Quebec, I guess.
Yeah.
Quebec, must be. Robert Lantry from Washington in the United States. Welcome to Holly Starkey. Welcome to Den Schumann from California in the US. Welcome to Ken McHardy from Queensland in Australia. And then without locations, I'm going to say hello and welcome to Jackie Hatton, Tricia Beveridge, Sidonie Bouvier, Amy Henson, Vivian Reese, and Lauren Deemer. Bouvier, that's Marge's maiden name, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So Valerie Zeismer Mullet, M-U-L-E-T, was a difficult one.
You've already masking it once, now you're masking it again.
Do you know how many people came up to me on Monday and said, "You got my name exactly right, James"?
One?
Yeah, one person. It was one, but nonetheless, it was a difficult name. So if you like to support the podcast or the Self-Publishing Show on Patreon, you can do that if you go to patreon.com/self-publishing show. Okay, I got that out of the way. Right, let's start our discussion. And why don't we go back to the beginning about why we did a conference? And I guess this begins with you and me and John experiencing other people's conferences.
So yes, we would have been going to conferences. I can't remember the first one I went to. Would have been the first writers' conference I spoke to was probably RWA or NINC. Can't remember. But yeah, we've been travelling around the world for conferences for a little while. And I have always enjoyed them. It's always great to be around other writers, even if you didn't go to any sessions, you'd still leave feeling enthused and invigorated, and all of that good stuff. So, kind of figured that there wasn't an opportunity to do that in Europe, so we should do that too. So we started thinking about it. We I reached out to Amazon to see if they'd like to be interested, and they said they would. And so we started to plan, didn't we? So we originally didn't know how popular it would be. So we sent, me, Lucy, and young Tom virtually scouted a few venues in London, and quickly discovered we've learned lots of things about conference organising over the last year or so, and quickly discovered, number one, that they book up a long way in advance, and number two, it's very difficult to judge how popular an event will be. So we picked a venue that had 320 seats. It was going to be in the National Gallery on Trafalgar Square. Really lovely lecture theatre. So we booked that, made tickets available, and sold out in about 30 seconds. By which we figured we might need a bigger boat, to quote a famous movie. And then we started looking around a bit more, and it was an SPF community member, Sarah Weldon, who had some connections in that industry, and she put us in touch with the Royal Festival Hall, and we sent Tom. Tom reported back, said it was rather good, and we booked it. That was 950 capacity, wasn't it? 920?
916, yeah.
16,
is the seating capacity of the main theatre, the main auditorium there. Yeah, and we sort of zeroed in on that. I think we chose it even just on the basis of the description, the layout, and Tom's description of it.
Location too was pretty good.
Location as well, and I went down to see it. So it's in central London. I mean, London is one of the great cities of the world. It's like New York, Tokyo. It's a city that people get excited about coming to and going to. So I think that holding it there makes sense. It's potentially an option for us to have it like the big political conferences take place on seaside resorts, strangely, because they're usually out of season. There's lots of hotel accommodation because they're full in the summer, and there's usually big venues there, so Brighton and Bournemouth and Blackpool. So that is an option for us, and we did discuss that. But actually, it's not as fun as coming to London, one of these fab cities that it is, and I think that was a good decision for us. The South Bank is not to everyone's taste, I have to say. I mean, I find it a bit of a monstrosity. I always have done this big concrete thing, but it is iconic, built in the 50s and 60s when concrete was king. I think they went for a rundown Soviet city look, which is what they've got. But nonetheless, you've got the River Thames, House of Parliament nearby, and the London Eye and all that. So from that point of view, I think it lent the. It's a bit like setting your book in a landscape that forms part of the story. It definitely lent the self-publishing show live a sort of a feel, some context for it. So we went ahead and set that up, and then you got busy. We compartmentalized the organization, which was good. And one of the good things, I think, looking back, I'm making a list now of things to change for next time, of course. But one of them is that you went off on the program, and I was able to leave you, and you did that. I think probably there's one or two things we would change about the exact operation of that. But from your point of view, you're an author. You're the big author amongst us. You're the person who sits there running campaigns, thinking about book covers, thinking of all the bits and pieces that go to being an indie author. So how did you approach how you were going to program the conference?
So I put loads of names on the wall, then I threw darts at them. I've been kind of mulling it over for ages, just in the way that I often do with even when I'm plotting a book, I'll suddenly be bubbling away. So quiet moments or not so quiet moments, I might think that would be a good session, or I might listen to a podcast and think I'd really like to hear that author talk about whatever it is that they've done successfully. And what I wanted to do, it was very hard to pitch this one in terms of what level to go for. And so I decided in the end that we weren't going to do any kind of mega teaching. So I wasn't going to teach people on Facebook ads or Amazon ads. Might do that next year, but I didn't want to it to be the kind of one where you'd sit down and leave with a notebook full of notes. I didn't feel that was the vibe we wanted the first time. I really wanted people to leave feeling enthused and excited about what's possible as an author these days. And that was that's why I mean, just when I spoke and I did my kind of Vegas speech about the mistakes I've made, which actually is not so much about the mistakes I've made. It's just misconceptions that I have come to see as mistakes over the years, and what might be a negative about self-publishing actually is a positive. So I wanted people to leave feeling jazzed about what we're doing. And that same ethos went through with the 5 female writers. It was International Women's Day the Sunday before, and I was very keen to have 5 successful female authors on the panel. And so we had the 5 kind of under the radar, not so much under the radar now, but making 6 figures, retiring their husbands, all of that kind of good stuff. So I was pleased with that idea. We then had, Joanna Penn. It was obvious I wanted Joanna to come and speak, and without spoiling too much, we do a survey to attendees that went out a couple of days ago, and slightly gallingly, Joanna is 3 times more popular than me. So,
who's in second place?
It was the high-powered, the under the radar in indie. So I come in,
which I like to call my session.
Your session, yeah, that's right. So I kind of wander in third place, which is very disappointing. So everyone who attended, you're all bastards. I'm not doing it next year. But no, I knew Joe would be great. So that was, and I haven't seen that one yet because we were busy in the bowels of the conference center whilst Joanna was speaking. So I'll watch that one digitally. And other sessions we had a few kind of bumps in the road. So I also spoke to Louise Ross. He was great. I knew Louise would be brilliant about her success. But then we were going to have a panel with Damon from BookFunnel. We were going to have Dan Wood from Draft to Digital, Ricardo, BookBrush, a couple of others, and something we'll talk about later on. The virus picked some of them off, not literally, but it made them. We were getting emails. Damon couldn't come, and he told us on the Sunday night, I think it was. Nothing that was Damon's fault. He didn't have a choice. So that kind of left us scrambling around. In fact, it was Saturday night, and I dropped Ricardo an email on Saturday and said, "Look, we're in a bit of a pickle. Can you help?" And Spanish Jesus did his one of his miracles.
Ricardo Fayette from Reedy, we should say.
Yes, who we call Spanish Jesus. And if you've seen Ricardo, you'll know why that is. But he spent Sunday putting together a fresh presentation where he took people through. He basically did the presentation for the people who wouldn't have been there about the services that are available to authors, and that was great. Ricardo's really good at that. Even managed to surmount the one technical issue we had in the whole day, which was that James didn't plug the laptop in, and he was very professional about it. So, yeah, that was how it kind of came together. I thought it was pretty good. The feedback generally is very positive. We've had. Yeah. I think some people would have liked something a little bit more higher level. Had one person, isn't this the way with bad reviews, right? You always look at the bad review. We've had, I think 96% of people said they will come back next year, which is great. Now, my eye was caught by the one person who said, "I'm very disappointed in you, Mark. I expected more from you." Because I don't know, because it wasn't quite what she wanted. You can't please everyone.
No, you can't.
I'm pleased. I just know, and I'll shut up in a minute. I just know from walking through the foyer and going on the boat trip afterwards that it was very enthusiastic. The atmosphere was really, really buzzing. So
yeah,
that's important.
I think I've been looking through the feedback as well, and you always look rather than the focus on the one criticism, which you inevitably, or indeed the one over enthusiastic reply, you look for repetitive themes, and one of them I think is a really interesting one, and it's about that pitch, about that sort of whether we're granular level teaching people how to set up campaigns, or whether we're having a general chat and trying to inspire people. And so a few people said that the panels in particular, we had 4 and 5 people on the panels, which is quite a lot of people in a 45-minute panel, so you don't get a lot out of each. So all 3 of the panels did draw people saying, enjoy it. Some people loved them, like the second favourite was this 100k authors panel. But people also saying it was a bit like listening to a podcast. It was the top level, little bit about each, and learn so much in those cases. So from our point of view for next year, I think there's a place absolutely for that environment, but it should be dovetailed with a sort of Joe Penn-esque session where people are sitting there making notes. That's a really important thing for us to think about how we balance that. I wouldn't want to lose those sessions. Well, I suppose that it brings us on to the question of what we were trying to provide for people who'd put the commitment, time, and effort. It was a cheap ticket, really. It was £30. The biggest effort probably was getting there. It could have cost most people more to get there than to the tickets. So it's not an investment in that sense. It was investment in their transport, their time, and effort. What did they get rewarded with? And this goes back to, I suppose, what I would say I get rewarded with when I go to Nink and Thrillerfest and 20 books, which is the conversations you have with other people who encourage you, who swap ideas with you, who are doing the same sort of thing as you at the same stage, or they've been there and they've done it, and all those bits and pieces. I mean, that is, for me, the gold dust of why you attend a live event. And I hope that's what people got out of it on Monday. Again, one of the things we got back, and we will address this next year, is a little bit more time for that, a little bit more time to mix over lunch and in the evening and so on.
Yeah, I mean, a tricky thing with program was we only had the venue from 8 until 4, so 8 until half 4 we kind of had. So to actually program that and lunch and breaks, before you know it, you don't have long. So we only had like 15-minute breaks, and lunch was an hour. And with people then having, because to keep the price down, we didn't do any catering kind of for the attendees. So on the basis that it's a South Bank, it's easy to find things to eat. But I've seen a few people saying that although they were able to find what they wanted, they were a little bit late back into the next session. So this is all, we're learning all of this. And I think one of the things we will probably look at, we knew this was cheap. I mean, 30 quid is just ridiculously cheap. It was not intended to make any money. We just wanted to make sure we didn't go broke doing it, and we could have gone broke.
We could have gone broke
as things happen. But we wanted to be super cheap. Now next year, I think we will do 2 days. That's what we're looking at the moment. Possibly with two. If we have the same venue, there are a couple of halls that we can use, the big one and a smaller one, which is still quite big. And do that over 2 days rather than just one. Now, of course, that will mean that the price will be a little more, but still, it's not going to be expensive. Even if it was like £99, I'd be like, yep, I am signing up immediately to that, because I know that will be great value. But we'll see. And I'd like to bring over some Americans, some others to come over to do, and people like Dave Chesson. I'd really like to get Dave Chesson over. He'd be great to talk about. If you want people to learn stuff about algorithms and metadata, Dave's really good at that. So we could fly someone like him over. I'd love to get Shane Silvers over, Lindsay Hall perhaps. We could have panels of authors depending on their genre. So we could have urban fantasy, we could have thrillers, romance, whatever. And that might mean it's a little bit more expensive, but I don't think it's going to be very much more expensive. We're not talking about, Nink cost about $500, I think, $400.
Yeah, a Thrillerfest costs nearly $1,000.
Yeah, we aren't going anywhere near that kind of level.
That doesn't, in Thrillerfest, that doesn't include accommodation, or might include some food. I don't think it includes food, actually.
It's pretty expensive. You can't. It's a good conference, but it's expensive. No, we aren't going to be doing anything like that. This is not going to be something that forms a core part of SPF business. This is going to be something that we do because we enjoy it, and we think people can have a good time coming along.
Yeah, and we'll talk to our friends at Amazon and BookBub. And so our BookBub sponsored part of the evening, the champagne reception or the Prosecco reception on the boat in the evening. But unfortunately, like others, they made a global decision not to travel in the few days before. So it was so sad not to have them there. But we'll talk to Reedy and BookBub and Amazon and ask them, because these are not... we could easily say we'll take all comers, sponsorship-wise, and we could have applications and checks written by people who we don't really know. We don't know what the service is like. We're not doing that. The people we are working with from a sponsorship point of view are services we use, people we know, and people I consider more than just service providers to the indie community. I would consider them part of the indie community. So for me, it's important that we accommodate their needs. What's going to be useful for them. In terms of having a gathering of indie people in one place. And I think if we do that, we give that value for money on both sides. I mean, Amazon in particular are interesting because they put quite a lot of time and effort into the London Book Fair. And I think for them, you get a lot of their audience turn up there, but actually most of the book fair is not their audience. And so I think that's another reason why I think there's a need for this conference to be an annual event. In London, in the heart of Europe. still in the heart of Europe. And so yes, I mean, it's interesting hearing you talk about the programming point of view, and I've been thinking a lot about it as well, and particularly next year we get the opportunity of having 2 theatres. We won't be able to expand, I guess we won't be able to expand the attendance.
Well, let's speak to Craig Martell about that, because I think what Craig does is that he sells kind of at the first session, people who have kind of like silver tickets watch that in the other room.
Right.
And then when the first session is over, assuming that not everyone will be in the one space, I think he sells 100 or 200 tickets more than that main room's capacity, I think.
Yeah.
But we have to have a chat with Craig, because he's done this 3 times now at a bigger scale than us. So we'll have a chat to him. He's the
potentially
guru.
Could sell another 350 odd tickets, which I think is the expansion size of the per sale.
Possibly wouldn't do all that much, but yeah, we could. There may be a bit more capacity, so we can definitely look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a bit of a cliche about conferences is that it's those conversations you have in the corridors that make it worthwhile. Yeah. And I don't mean to be rude to you and me and Joe and Louise and someone who appeared on stage, but definitely that is the value of it, of that meeting. And particularly, a lot of authors are sort of lonesome figures, and I don't just mean that they're chronically shy, but they work by themselves, and you kind of fall out the habit. You can fall out the habit of meeting and greeting and chatting with people. But I felt that the atmosphere was felt inclusive in that sense to me. The boat trip in the evening, which we should also mention. So we hired this Mississippi paddle steamer.
It's enormous.
It was enormous. It was huge. It was beautiful, actually. When it came in with its lights on, it looked absolutely fantastic. And again, this was another event we almost lost to the virus, but we held on to it. They were pleased as well. I think they probably had a lot of cancellations, as the hall have. But the atmosphere on that was buzzing from the moment we stepped on board. Everyone was just in huddles. I think we had, in fact, I do know the numbers now. I'm happy to give the numbers. I think I told you it's just nearly 300, I think, on board. We could have had up to 620. I think we had about 20 seat spaces left at the time. So we had about 600 potential guests and tickets sold. So we had half of that, but it felt packed. Actually, goodness knows what it would have been like if all
it did feel packed. It really did, yeah.
That was a great atmosphere.
It was, yeah. It was. I obviously had Buster Birch put together a band for us, and yeah, it was great. I mean, I only really got onto the top deck because my brother was with me, and he kind of got an idea of what it can be like at an event like that. It was basically very difficult to get any time to yourself, which was fine because I knew that would be like that. And it's lovely to talk to so many authors, but it was pretty full on for 2 hours. I think then didn't we originally said we were going to do it for 2 hours rather than 3, but I think we actually docked for an hour. So
I think we did it for. I think I got that wrong actually. I did reduce it about an hour, but of course it was 4 hours before, and we reduced it to 3. So that was just in one of the emails. I was getting a bit, perhaps not surprisingly, a little bit befuddled about things as we were making some changes. Which reminds me, I have 27 bottles of Prosecco to pick up in London because I'm all drunk. So I'm going to be all right for my isolation.
You are, yeah. So that was. I mean, that's an idea of. I mean, the virus. We should probably talk about that and how it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do now, because we've talked about the event during the day and we've talked about it in the evening. Let's have a little taste of the day, which has been put together by John, our editor, who was there in the evening as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll get to see this in all its glory. So don't forget to look up the YouTube video, but also you'll get to hear some of what we listened to on the day at the conference.
Let's do it.
Conference took place today. It was incredible. We covered non-fiction, authors making 50 to 100k a year, Joe Penn talking about all the other ways of making a living, not just selling books, and we had inspirational moments from people like Louise Ross and Mark Dawson about how they got to where they are today. And now we are on a Mississippi paddle steamer on the River Thames. This is quite an important part of the day because this is where people get to meet their buddies, future partners who are going to help them navigate their self-publishing careers.
Yeah, personal highlight for me was actually seeing Mark in person, because he is the kind of personality behind it. If you sign up for the course, you get his videos, you hear his voice, but actually to see them, and they're not precious, they're just wandering around buying drinks, chatting with people.
We love events that help indies learn new techniques and new strategies they can use to help their business. We especially were excited about this one because Europe has so few conferences for indies and just such a great lineup of speakers.
For me, this is just a great opportunity to learn, and just listening to everyone's piece of advice. I just think you've got to keep your ears open.
Being here at the show, meeting other authors who have had success in both the non-fiction and the fiction fields has been really inspiring.
All the speakers was great. At halftime, I told John Dyer that he can open the champagne bottles because it looked like this will be a success. When I looked around, I saw lots of happy faces. I think it was awesome, really, and I will definitely come back next year.
I think it's really nice that it's a bespoke event for indie authors rather than something that's muddling together things that are for traditional publishing and for people that might be interested in independent publishing as well.
There's no better way to create a relationship than to rub elbows with somebody. Everybody at these events, everybody that's part of SPS has a great spirit, they're willing to communicate, they're here to actually support each other. You need to be here in order to make those relationships. They will last you the rest of your career.
So that was the conference, the highlights package. If you want to watch the sessions in all their glory, and there's, I guess, several hours, I haven't counted them up yet, of material there, all good stuff. And if you watch the YouTube version, you'll see what quality that is in as well. You can go to selfpublishingformula.com/digital. And I think, what did we say, $25? Is that how much we charge for it? I think it's $25. Something like that. So about
Cheap.
20 quid, £19 in the UK. You get access to the full day to watch, and that's available now. So we talked about, we've mentioned the virus, which is suddenly in the last 2 or 3 days, it's gone slightly crazy here. As we're standing here today, the Premier League soccer in the UK has been postponed, as has my beloved League Two, where Cambridge United are, all professional football. We've had all the major tournaments put on hold as well, and countries around us are closing schools. I guess we're going to get to that point as well in the UK. A lot of debate, or very interesting debate, about how to deal with this and different strategies. Suddenly everyone's an armchair expert. All that's happening now. We had it all to deal with in the run-up to the conference. But I guess, Mark, a few authors are thinking, how is this going to impact me as an author? What are your initial thoughts about that?
Well, it's a tricky one. So I noticed I had a very slow day yesterday, probably the slowest for 3 or 4 months. And I suspect the reason for that is because people are too worried to be enjoying themselves at the moment. They're just consuming the news, which, I'm kind of like that. I'm not writing much at the moment because I'm trying to work out, what the hell is happening. So there's that, and people may just not be in the mood to be reading stuff and enjoying themselves right now. But so I think that's a bump. I think what might happen, and this is a little crass, but whatever. There will be a point when people are self-isolating or quarantined. If you were living in parts of China at the turn of the year into January. I was reading today, people have just come out of their homes for the first time in 5 weeks. So people are going to need things to do. They can't go to the stores. They can't go, they can't go to the cinema or to restaurants. They're stuck indoors. One thing you can say about ebooks is that they are easily delivered. You don't need anyone to bring them to you. They can just appear on your device, and you can enjoy them. So I think it's potentially an opportunity for authors to. And you can look at it as an opportunity in one or two ways. You can look at it as a way to make some money, which obviously that's good. But it's also it's a way to provide entertainment to people and distractions when they really need it. So that's also a good reason to be doing what we're doing right now. So we'll see. I am thinking I might do what I was going to do. I've got a launch next week. So once that's out of the way, I haven't done a free run on any of my books for probably 2 or 3 years. And what I might do is I have a collection of short stories. I might set that to 0 for 4 or 5 days. And one of those short stories is linked into the next Milton book that I'm working on at the moment. So I can give that to all of my readers who haven't had that. So, you can enjoy that at my expense. But at the same time, it will also prep people for that new book that's coming out. So hopefully that's a win-win. But I think that's what I might do in the next couple of weeks.
A virus special. I think we should add a word of caution into exploiting what's ultimately going to be a tragedy for the world, because many people will die. There's no question. I mean, the Prime Minister got sort of criticised for saying that in a press conference yesterday, but he's basically telling people as it is that we are going to lose people who we know probably over the next year. Also, I mean, being a little bit too crass and exploiting that for your commercial gain will not win you friends. But adapting yourself a little bit to understanding people's circumstances is an excellent thing to do. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I was thinking is, from an author's point of view, is there's always stuff to learn. There's always new areas to explore and examine. Maybe you've parked audiobooks for a while or something like that, or print on demand. Or if you're in KU, are you leaving money on the table by not using other print services to distribute, etc.? There's lots of areas. If you're going to be stuck at home for a little while now, which I guess a lot of authors are, but anyway, you've got people who haven't yet made the transition to full-time authorhood who might suddenly find themselves working from home. A lot of my friends are now. There's an opportunity to dive into new areas of learning. So on that note, without being too crass, I guess our courses could probably do quite well over the next few weeks if people are thinking, do you know what, now's the time to learn something online.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they definitely could. And so, 101, the ones that are open are 101, cover design, and that's it, isn't it? They're open at the moment. So, we've got new courses coming shortly, but on revision and selling books, but how to write a bestseller, I should say. Give me an opportunity to focus on those if I'm here. But you can go to selfpublishingformula.com/101 to have a look at the 101 course. Open, I think, until next Wednesday. It's unusual times, isn't it? I guess some people are also potentially in your field, Mark, thinking about writing a book on viral outbreaks. Well, as I think that I mentioned to you before, I've had an idea on the back burner for about 2 years now. So it's actually fairly well outlined. It just needs to be written about Ebola. Although saying that, I was talking to an author with some military experience. I won't go any more than that, but he and I have been having a chat about some things, and he said rather than Ebola, the thing that would be really interesting is smallpox. Right. Because smallpox, very super transmissible. There is no one has any immunity to it now because it's effectively been eradicated, apart from being in some labs somewhere. So if you could engineer a smallpox outbreak, so that's just thinking about I could write that, and I can write that quite fast. I could probably get that out in a couple of months, and whilst we're in the middle of this mess. But I'm not going to do that because that really would feel too soon. Too soon. It would be quite scary to write it. It would probably be, I don't think people would be interested in reading that kind of stuff right now. So.
No, I mean, that's the thing, is it? Do people want to read about the sorts of tragedy they're going through, or do they want to read something set on a beach?
Yeah, I think this would be a really good time to be writing kind of feel-good fiction. So, romances, uplit is another genre that's doing well at the moment. I think that's probably what people want. It might not be the kind of books that I write, potentially. Who knows? Maybe it could be, but I think it's those kinds of upbeat, happy distractions are what people are looking for at the moment.
Yeah, it is about adapting. There's been a lot of interference. Unfortunately, because of the virus, I am going to have to put back publication of The Last Flight.
Oh, God.
Fortunately, because of the virus. That's because of the virus. I don't know if I mentioned that. That's the reason that's not been published yet.
Yes, I should also mention we had some authors come to stay with us as well. So the weekend before, we had our first Salisbury Writers Retreat, which was really good. It was excellent. We hired a really super hotel, very traditionally English, and we had 2 lovely days. It was really a bright springtime day both times, and I think 5 or 6 of them went up Salisbury Cathedral spire, so you can do a tower tour. So they climbed up the top of the tower, which is a really good way to introduce themselves to each other and see Salisbury. And then we had dinner at the hotel in the evening, which was great. And then the next day we spent it at the hotel. So I did a little bit of teaching, and we had some one-to-ones, which I think went down quite well. And then they came over to our house for dinner in the evening, and Lucy had organised all of that. It was really good. We had a magician and a hypnotist, so we had some authors hypnotised, which was great.
Can you say any of the words that are going to send them off to behaving like a chicken or something.
It wasn't like that. It was more kind of. Well, we had the hypnotist managed to persuade Wendy Vella from New Zealand, who'd come over, to associate positive feelings with her watch, and he could bring her, basically change her mood by telling her things about her watch, and it was really impressive how he did it. Sleights of hand and stuff like that. So we loved him, and then sat down and had dinner, and halfway through dinner the oven packed up, which was that was interesting. But we managed to get around it, and then Sunday we had breakfast, and then they all came to the conference and had seats at the front. So really, really good. I enjoyed it a lot. It was hard work, and I was pretty knackered at the end of it, but it was very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different type of thing. And who is that best? So the retreat, we should say, was a bigger investment because you got a very nice hotel room and lots of stuff thrown in. So £1,000, I think you charged for that. A small number of people, and I know Craig has run that sort of thing. I guess Bali was an example of that. The 20 books Bali was a smaller affair, higher buy-in. So first of all, the obvious thing to say is probably not for me, for people at the beginning of their careers. But if you are making, I know what you're going to say, if you're making decent money already, but you're trying to get to that next level, if you're sort of at the few thousand a month, but you want to be 5 figures a month, is it that sort of thing? That
was what I was aiming to. One of the questions I asked when people wanted to apply was, because it wasn't first come first served. It was apply and I'll think about it. But what income was one factor that I was fairly cognizant of. So we had a few who like doing 5 figures, a couple doing 6 figures, who wanted to push on. So I was able to give Elizabeth Johns, who writes Regency Romance, and I was sat together at dinner on the Friday night, and we had a little chat about some ways that she could improve her income. And when I saw her on the Saturday, she said, "I can't believe it. I've already made $200 more based on what you said last night." So that was
there you go.
That was pretty good. I think she's had a very strong few days since then. It's not genius stuff. It's not. I'm not a wizard or anything, but it's just kind of thinking about different tactics and strategies with people who've done it before and could give her some.
She's paid for her buy-in.
Hope so. Yeah, that's what you'd hope. But yeah, it's just nice to be with other writers. That was the thing for me too, actually, to be around other writers and to welcome them to our house and to just have a nice time together. So I loved it. So we're doing another one in September, which is already sold out, and we'll do another one next March, which I'll probably start thinking about soon.
Good. Okay. Well, that's our review of the first self-publishing show live. And I really hope that we're standing here in 5 years' time, and it's an important annual fixture in the self-publishing calendar. Sort of feels that we've definitely got the potential to make it that. But we've got some work to do between now and next year. I'm going to have to be a little bit careful. I think we get the broad stuff sorted out now. We have to get the venue booked because that's going to slip away, and then we park it for 6 months because you can't spend 12 months organising these things.
No.
It didn't nearly kill me. I enjoyed it, but it was every day was very busy. Certainly the last couple of months. Certainly the last couple of weeks. Great. Good. Well, I think that's it. We should remind people that our 101 course has days left to live in terms of enrollment. Not less to live. It's obviously being updated all the time. It's very much alive. But it is going to close for enrollment on Wednesday. So if you go to selfpublishingformula.com/101, you will get an opportunity to take a look at that course. And of course, with all our courses, there's a 30-day, no questions asked refund period. So an opportunity for you to just pay that first installment, have a look at the course, see if it's for you. And I've been doing the 101 course a bit recently. I've been watching the Amazon ads. I can't wait for the new, actually that's a Facebook ads course. Ads for authors course, I should say. I can't wait for the new Amazon ads course because I'm getting tired of listening to me talking. I mean, I know this stuff because I recorded the session.
Yes, we need to chase Janet, see where she is with the first material.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. Got my first UK campaigns running today, actually.
Good.
Not for my book, I should say.
No.
Because, unfortunately, because of the global pandemic, I have had to put back the publication of The Last Flight.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Did I mention that? But I have, for the book we've picked up as our little publishing venture, which is running at the moment. Good. Excellent. Thank you very much, Mark. It was For people who weren't there, we should say how we opened the conference.
We should, yes. So we had a nice John Dyer and John Stone put together a really good little video with some fairly embarrassing pictures of me in it. Not that I'm bothered about those kinds of things. So yeah, that was fun. We could hear that as we were waiting down in the bowels of the festival hall or the theatre, waiting to come out. So I came out dressed normally after the video ended, and James came out dressed in a hazmat suit with gas mask, which was I've been bothered by people coming onto stage wearing weird costumes before with
yes.
Martel and his dinosaur, but this time it was Blatch in a hazmat suit, which was interesting. At least this time I was anticipating it, but yeah, it's different. We do things differently.
It was warm, yeah, an old hazmat suit from my BBC days, which I have carefully packed up again just in case it's required in the future. Yeah. But that was amazing to hear that opening Sting music from the self-publishing show, and to walk out on stage to people clapping and cheering us and being a part of that. Well, I found it was gave us a little fillip, I think, to keep going through the year. It can be hard work producing this show every week. But there you go. It was brilliant. Good. Okay. Yes. Just one reminder that you can download all those sessions, including that opening bit with me in my hazmat suit, at selfpublishingformula.com/digital. And that is it. So from all that leaves me to say, I think, Mark, at this stage, is that it's a goodbye from him.
And a goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.